It's like a prompt and response platform for SMS. Right? So you just get a prompt and you give a response. You have 20 seconds to give your response, or else you lose the game show. And yeah, everything just works off that. And yeah, this is the same platform that M-Pesa in Kenya actually is built on top. Right? So yeah, and we I guess if you look up M-Pesa, you would see how successful it is, and you won't even have to think twice for why we would need such a platform in the Bitcoin space.
What's up, everyone? Welcome to another episode of Changing the Tide. Today I'm talking with Kgothatso Ngako of Machankura, which is a Bitcoin project out of South Africa, serving quite a few nation states on the African continent. He's also the founder of Exonumia Africa, which is a project that is helping to translate for the massive amount of languages on the African continent the Bitcoin content. So exciting. He calls himself a catalyst. We talk a little bit about what that is, but also he is absolutely helping make getting Bitcoin into the hands of more and more people more easily, using a novel way to do it, which is GSM and USSD cellular network connections rather than internet connections to send and receive Bitcoin and Lightning, over Lightning, I should say, both over the Bitcoin network and the Lightning network. And so it's an exciting conversation, and let's get to it. All right, we got Kgothatso Ngako here today on Changing the Tide, and he is at Machankura and Exonumia Africa. And so very excited to have him on. He's doing some incredible things. We're going to go ahead and go over to the Clark Moody Bitcoin dashboard and just do a quick screen share here. And so we have on the dashboard, there he is. Kgothatso is here. Welcome to the show.
Yo, man, how are you doing?
Great, doing well. Thank you so much for coming on today.
Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. I was just going over the dashboard. Per US dollar, you can get 4,889 sats. We're looking at starting here at block height 761,281. There's almost 16,000 reachable Bitcoin nodes, 15,895. And there's over 5,000 Bitcoin in the Lightning network with, it looks like Lightning nodes available 16,507. So lots going on. And what's so exciting about Kgothatso is the work that he's doing at Machankura to make it easier and easier for people who don't have smartphones or aren't using them on the African continent to be able to send and receive Lightning payments right on their feature phones.
Able, definitely, that's also.
Yeah. So Kgothatso, tell us more. What gave you this idea for Machankura, and yeah, when did it come to you, and what was it like getting it off the ground?
Oh yeah, so basically, it's a part of an effort I'm trying to make Bitcoin more accessible to people in my community, like where I'm from, and I'm from a township in Mamelodi, Pretoria. So yeah, there's a few barriers that we have to deal with when accessing certain technologies. Internet is the primary one in this incident. But even if a person has an internet connected device, what usually happens is that they are then using a cheap Android device, and cheap Android phones do not have a lot of memory on them. So you make an app, and no one wants to delete TikTok to download your app, or Instagram to download your app. So any app you would think of building or deploying has to compete with TikTok, Instagram, WhatsApp, Facebook, and all these other apps for the storage space on a user's device. So, yeah, with that, I concluded that I won't be working on apps. So everything I worked on is kind of a web-based thing. And USSD, though, is the sweetest spot because a person doesn't even need a browser, and it would work on any device, on any phone with a GSM connection. So yeah, and Machankura was born, and lucky for me, Bitcoin is in the space, trying to make also Bitcoin more accessible, like the work that Fiat Jeff and Kumar the God, I think that's his handle, did with LNURL, and Lightning addresses. That is the secret sauce to why Machankura is so usable for most people, and they can send and receive Bitcoin back into the Bitcoin network and onto Machankura with ease. And yeah.
That's fantastic. Yeah, I'm on machankura.com right now. No internet
Mhm.
necessary. Bitcoin is for all of us. That's why it's important to build for the millions of people on the African continent with no reliable internet access. So I heard
Yeah.
GSM, Global System for Mobile Communications.
Hmm.
Um, so essentially, that's your telco, like digital cell network. Uh,
Yes, right. And yeah, even looking at the stats, and this is obviously something I did after building the project, like looked at the stats. Internet penetration across the continent is at 30% of the African population has an internet connection. And yeah, versus 80 cell phone devices for every 100 people on the African continent, right? So I think the GSM platform gives us a broader base to work from.
Incredible. And then for
Hmm.
USSD, quick codes, feature codes, that's a kind of a cellular communications protocol.
Yeah.
Uh, is that
Uh,
correct?
Yeah, it's like a prompt and response platform for SMS. Right? So you just get a prompt and you give a response. You have 20 seconds to give your response, or else you lose the game show. And yeah, everything just works off that. And yeah, this is the same platform that M-Pesa in Kenya actually is built on top. Right? So yeah, and we I guess if you look up M-Pesa, you would see how successful it is, and you won't even have to think twice for why we would need such a platform in the Bitcoin space.
So M-Pesa started in Kenya, uh,
Hmm.
correct? And it was essentially just sharing uh, basically unused minutes.
No, so that was
No.
just people, so people ended up sharing airtime with each other because yeah, they just needed a way to send value in a convenient fashion without using cash, because some places it's hard to get cash. And then M-Pesa was actually like a digital payment platform.
Okay.
They had, yeah, I think in our space we can say they had their own token, or they have their own token, and people just put money on the M-Pesa network and then send money on the M-Pesa network, which is set up by the telecom.
Yeah. So
Hmm.
what you're doing is you're taking that similar idea, but instead of fiat, you're sending Bitcoin over Lightning, essentially.
Yes, okay, yeah, and I personally like to see it not even as an M-Pesa thing because my interface is inspired by Bitcoin and the protocol, and yeah, it's just that obviously M-Pesa owns the USSD interface, figuratively and literally in terms of Safaricom or the telecom being the people who operate the infrastructure. So yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. And another reason it's different is I've heard criticisms of M-Pesa that it imposes pretty high fees
Yeah.
oftentimes on the
Mm-hmm.
users, whereas
Most definitely.
with you integrate. Okay, yeah,
Mm. So yeah, the fees are quite high, and yeah, a lot of other articles were written that it's due to a lack of competition as well. But it is what it is, you know. So yeah, but with Lightning, things are much cheaper to do if you're sending out a Lightning payment versus sending out a banking payment, for that matter. And yeah, M-Pesa is the biggest fintech in Africa, and yeah, so places that have an M-Pesa don't even have a banking infrastructure because there's no need.
wow,
Hmm.
wow. So then with I also noticed for Machankura that
Hmm.
users just need to know your phone number
Hmm.
to send the Bitcoin. But if you prefer more anonymity, not having your mobile number
Hmm.
be your identifier, you can set up a username with a Lightning address.
Yeah, no, that is the case as well, right? So the phone number can be used to receive as well, because you can use your phone number at 833.mobi as your Lightning address as well. So if you know anyone else's phone number on the African continent who's a Machankura user, you can send them Bitcoin to their phone number at 833.mobi. And yeah, so that is it.
Awesome. And then
Mhm.
what's the significance of 8333?
Oh
Out
yeah,
of
so
curiosity.
so that is the default port for the Bitcoin core daemon, right? And I was like, oh, cool! I really want this number. And lucky for me, nobody took that domain, so I was like, oh, cool, even better, you know. But the other thing with it is, you know, the .mobi domain. We've had a lot of services. So late night television, adult entertainment would have these ads, adult websites, adult Mobi content. They would use a number dot Mobi, right? So I wanted to use a number, and what better number than the default Bitcoin port, right? And yeah, ultimately, I see the service as yet another way for people to access and send and receive Bitcoin. Yeah, in the same way that if you're running the Bitcoin software on your device, you would open up the port on your machine to be a peer in the network. So hopefully, in the future of the project, you know, I make available a few tools that a person could access the broader Bitcoin network via our services and not just our custodial Lightning service.
Wow. Wow.
Hmm.
That would be really cool.
Yeah, no, most
um,
definitely. Right?
yeah, to open that up on USSD and GSM.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
I think it represents, yeah, go ahead.
No, no, you're saying it represents what?
Well, I think it just represents how wide-ranging and contextual Bitcoin developers can get because it
Hmm.
is, like you mentioned, Bitcoin is a daemon, so you can build on top of it, and you can build on it in so many different contexts.
Hmm.
So, thank you
Yeah.
for what
Right.
you're doing. It's incredible.
Yeah. Most definitely, man. And I think even for me, it was a thing of what would be the most beneficial contribution that I could make in the space. Right. So. Yeah, I am of the belief that there is enough Bitcoin core contributors in the space. Right? Yes, we can improve it because in some cases it doesn't work as well outside of certain setups. I think Jameson Lopp recently published a blog looking at how well your node would perform on low internet speeds. And yeah, it wasn't good because the default settings disconnect your node if it spends a certain amount of time without pinging, and if it has a ping that has a certain latency. Right? And I looked at that report and I'm like, wait, most of the time that's the latency my node has, right? So you're telling me that most of the nodes I'm connected to by default would disconnect from my node because of bad network access. So outside of that though, like I believe every other developer should optimize for the challenges that they are facing in their communities, because then things like LNURL happen. And yeah, Machankura, even if I should go as far as say that. And that being said, yeah, I feel like there's a lot of cool stuff coming out in the space. Like people are working on a lot of interesting new technology, and not really new technology, but new ways of using Bitcoin. So yeah.
Amazing.
Mhm.
Yeah, and so I'm going through the user guide
Oh yeah,
as we
cool.
speak, and so I see first and foremost you're able to
Hmm.
in the following countries: Ghana, Kenya, Malawi, Namibia, Nigeria, Tanzania, South Africa, Uganda, and Zambia. Uh,
Hmm.
that is where currently Machankura works.
Hmm.
Um, and then you can both send to any other Lightning address, Machankura users, or supported phone numbers. So even though, according to the USSD, you can send Sats to those countries. If someone has a Lightning address, potentially it doesn't matter if they're in those countries or not.
Yeah.
You could still send Sats.
Exactly. Right. And that is where the strength of the Lightning address comes in, because, one, I do not believe anyone could input a 64 character string, which is a normal Bitcoin address, in 20 seconds, right? I also don't believe you could do it on a keypad without making a mistake, right? And USSD also has like a 160 character limit. So Lightning invoices are long as a giraffe. So we can't really, we can't really put them on the USSD interface. Even let's say if the device had copy paste functionality, my service just wouldn't work with them. So yeah, then next best thing, a Lightning address, and all the Lightning invoice gets passed around in the background by the service, and the user just sees, oh, it succeeded, oh, it failed, and life goes on.
Wow.
Hmm.
Yeah. And then if it's not the phone number or Lightning address, then it's their Machankura username.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. So yeah, ultimately, unless somebody else sets it up, I believe most people would be sending to other Machankura users for majority of the time, right? Um,
yeah.
and yeah, only moving to another wallet if they have to, off ramp into their fiat currency or something like that.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah. Wow. So then you can also receive Bitcoin, send and receive Bitcoin, or sorry, you can receive Bitcoin, um,
Mhm.
and the interface for that includes potentially the QR code as well.
Mhm. Yeah. And yeah, so the QR code basically comes in two parts. The QR code is just the LNURL payment request. I think that's what it's called. My bad if I So it's a static QR code, so a person could also print it out,
Yep.
and so merchants could literally print this out and put it in front of their stores. The other thing is obviously Moon doesn't have support for this. Cash App doesn't have support for this. So there's another tab that on each user's webpage, which is 833.mobi/phone number or 833.mobi/username, you would see a tab that says having trouble with a QR code. And so you just enter an amount and you then get a Bolt 11 invoice that you can pay.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. Yeah, because I think I saw actually Mary, Mary, who is in, I believe, Lagos, Nigeria, and
Mm-hmm.
she, I'm pretty sure, received right on her feature phone a
Mm-hmm.
payment from a Cash App user, Michael, in
Mm-hmm.
San Francisco, USA,
Pretty
and that was
much,
an
right?
incredible thing to watch.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. You see. So yeah, things like that. And yeah, I'd like to see more of that, basically. Uh, but I think Mary was using a
Yeah,
smartphone, if I remember correctly. But I didn't watch the whole thing. I watched the 10-second clip.
you know what? She must have been using a smartphone because I did see a
Mm-hmm.
QR code online.
Mm-hmm.
So never mind. But still,
Mm-hmm.
that's cool about the Lightning Network, and theoretically, it could still work if she weren't on a smartphone.
Exactly. So yeah.
Awesome. And I see too that you encourage people to fund their Machankura wallet with Azteco or One Voucher, which are great
Mm-hmm.
voucher redemption
Options.
systems,
Uh-huh.
making it easy. Yeah,
Yeah. So
yeah.
yeah, I am of the belief that they are the best on ramp in the world. Esteco is the best on ramp in the world. Specifically because also the user profile, like a person without a internet connected device, isn't going to create a account on an exchange. Right, a person with a feature phone cannot create a Coinbase account or anything like that. So yeah, me telling them just go to a corner store and buy this voucher and then load up the voucher on Machankura as if it's airtime. That is a much more doable exercise, right? And yeah, so there's other benefits as well to Esteco, which last week somebody was using one of the major on ramps, off ramps in the world, and they got fished, and then they lost all the coins they had on their account, right? With that exchange. And I'm like, oh, as deco customers will never get fished, because why would they? Like they literally buying a voucher and loading it up on a wallet, so they don't even need to know Esteco exists or whatever the support email is for Esteco. So yeah, it's a great service. It's a great system. They have a great approach, and I think they are also a good flagship product for how well work building on Bitcoin is, because what's the word I'm looking for? They have been around since 2014. So, which other cryptocurrencies have been around for that long? So it's like, oh, your flagship project allows you to build for almost a decade now, and yeah, yeah, I love those guys, and I've learned a lot from them.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
Like I've been impressed by them and inspired too because they talk
Hmm.
about building on Bitcoin according to its own principles. It
Hmm.
doesn't require an account. You can
Yes.
download the client and run it
Hmm.
right away. But if you're going to
Hmm.
build on top of it, you should build as Bitcoin is, not force
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
quaint internet ideas on top of it, like an account, for
Exactly.
instance.
Exactly. Right. And yeah, so little things like that, change how you approach building. Right? And for me, I'm like, I keep trying to read the stuff that they post as well, and I'm like, oh, Bitcoin would be very far if actually people were thinking like this. Right? But obviously, that's not the case. Even though we have enough incentives to follow the Bitcoin approach, because ultimately, with more freedom, you get to you get more activity. So
Amazing. So the other things you can do, as I'm continuing to go through the user guide, which I'll post in the notes as well, so that people can read them. You've made them available via your website, but people can check their balance and history with their user pin, and even their transaction history with a paginated list of all transactions that they have completed.
So yeah,
Amazing.
and yeah, I'm even thinking about making the pin optional. Because people keep forgetting their pins.
Uh-oh. Yeah.
So yeah, reduce the friction.
But that is a mobile first type of, most people are used to a pin, but yes, I have forgotten a couple pins in my lifetime as well. So,
Exactly.
and then the other thing is, because of the way you've built natively on top of Bitcoin and Lightning, there are goods and services that people can pay for, that you've integrated with, like Bit Refill for airtime and shopping vouchers at a whole host of providers, but then also Lightning Watts, so they can purchase their electricity bill in South Africa.
Yeah, well, right. I also use that to buy to buy airtime. I meant to buy electricity for myself. Lightning Watts, a great guy. Actually, Lightning Watts is the same guy who made the Pick and Pay service that got announced today. So shout out to him as well, Karel van Veek.
Awesome, awesome. I'll have
Hmm.
to find him on Twitter, and
Hmm.
if he is on Twitter, but
Yeah,
that
yeah,
what a
no.
cool service.
I'll do an introduction for you guys.
Awesome, awesome. So, um, so they can do all this and even keep track of the Bitcoin exchange rate as well in local currency.
Yes, exactly. Right. But I hate that feature a lot because why do I hate it again? Oh yeah, because some countries have an official rate and an unofficial rate, and the unofficial rate is the rate everyone else uses when they are trading. Right? But yeah, so I'm just like, I'm so close to getting rid of it, but I'll just, find a way to keep track of which is the official, which is the unofficial in every place, and keep that there, right? Oh, and even while we're talking on this point, I think I can relate it back to the spend Bitcoin point, right? I had a tweet out yesterday, which is a poll, on the Machankura account, which the text reads question mark, and the question is spend Bitcoin or barter Bitcoin, right? And basically, I'm leaning quite heavily on the term barter Bitcoin, so that people understand that what it's like to actually spend Bitcoin. You're literally bartering. But I'll have you know that the poll is now at 49% for spend Bitcoin and 51% for barter Bitcoin. So yeah, I think by the end of tomorrow, the poll would be on our spend Bitcoin side. But I'll make an executive decision if I'm still in the same state of mind tomorrow to switch from spend Bitcoin to barter Bitcoin. And I believe from a user perspective, like when you see this option that says barter Bitcoin, you might be put in the state of mind to say, oh, I can literally barter Bitcoin, like go to the shop and ask if the shopkeeper is willing to accept Bitcoin for a loaf of bread, right? Which for me is the thing that would help push adoption, and it goes back to the point you were raising on or on the ideology from the Azteco founders, that we should push and operate from Bitcoin's perspective. No one will accept 10,000 Bitcoins for a pizza unless someone offers 10,000 Bitcoins for a pizza. So, and for me, it also goes to the point of how much one Bitcoin is worth anyway. And yeah, the co-founders also had an article that the Bitcoin price doesn't matter. And if you're bartering Bitcoin, literally the Bitcoin price doesn't matter. All that matters is how much is the person providing you the service or the good willing to accept for that service or good.
That's a brilliant way to put it, is that it's actually what someone will accept for the Bitcoin. It doesn't necessarily, you don't have to go through the fiat price. The minute someone is willing to take this amount of Bitcoin for this particular good or service, that's
Yeah.
the Bitcoin barter exchange rate.
Mhm.
is like, that's fascinating. And I've been trying to put good words to it, and I think you just knocked it out of
Mhm.
the park.
Yep.
Yeah. Which, by the way, I just voted barter Bitcoin because you just persuaded me to. So
Oh,
it's now
thank you very much.
51.9%.
Thank you very much.
Yeah. Okay. So I read something in your blog,
Mhm.
Kgothatso, which was this,
Mhm.
that you like to describe yourself not as a founder or co-founder, but as a catalyst.
Yeah. Yeah.
Could you talk a
Yeah.
little bit about that? Because I see it.
Yeah, so that blog is a weird blog because I wrote it quite a long time ago, right? But this was what is was going through my mind at the time. I was still employed, and I was working on a few projects. So this was one of the projects, by the way, Content Connect. It's a VPN, right? So basically what was happening, I was trying to figure out like what is the missing step for the projects I work on. Why is it they get to a point, technically they work, but then they don't have growth, right? And a lot of people, or not a lot of people I was talking with were saying I need a co-founder and stuff like that, right? And then I was like, what does it mean to even be a founder, right? And ultimately I was like, there's a desired reaction, right? And once I got
Mm,
into that state of mind, I remembered chemistry, that, oh yeah, we do have desired reactions and they take time. And so what you would do to speed it up is use a catalyst instead of letting the reaction take however long it feels like taking, right? And the catalyst in its pure chemistry definition doesn't get burnt out, right? And for me that was a good thing and a good point, because I also don't want to get burnt out while working on this stuff, right?
mm.
Although let me say that part of the way I've been working in the past year is trying to get burnt out, but yeah. So but I don't want to get burnt out. So then it becomes a thing of how do you get, or how do you accelerate the desired reaction without getting burnt out, right? And if you are getting burnt out, you then need to understand that your role is probably done. You need to bring somebody else on board, and it would be great if that person also comes in to play a catalyst role, and not because most of the time I can't tell you what it is that I would like for you to do on the project, because you need to be able to identify that, oh, this is what I need to do, so on and so forth. And even when I'm working with people, I'm like, oh yeah, they usually ask like, what role would they be coming on as, right? And I'm like, yo, can you come on as a catalyst instead of social media manager or whatever, and for me, if a person is really trying to get to the desired reaction, rather than do their job or handle their responsibility, that is for me way better than anything else, right? So even with me, with a lot of people I've worked with, there's a lady called Flo who used to who would host events and I would be there. Oh, and I used to DJ as well, right? So And yeah, even from those days, I was like, oh, cool. Before the event, there's all this work that needs to be done. Right? You can either say, "Oh, you're calling me up to be a DJ at the event, so I'll come for my slot and leave." Or if you really want the event to be a success, you can ask, "Oh, where's the poster? Post the poster every day for the full 2 weeks leading up to the event. Generate hype for the event. On the day of the event, get there 3 hours later to help set up." Ask who's on the lineup, and I usually would get to an event early, play music from the moment that they said the show was supposed to start, play music from that moment until the first performance, because for me that sets the mood for the rest of the night. Even if there's not even a single person in the audience at the point of me starting to play music, that sets the mood for the rest of the night. So I would play bangers one way, and also play songs that I wouldn't get to play when the audience is there, and it sets the mood, and we had to have a successful show, and everyone would be happy. But ultimately, that's where the catalyst mindset comes in. My role wouldn't be just to DJ. My role would be, oh, let's have a successful event. So Bitcoin then is great, and it's different because we literally have so many catalysts in the space. It's not even funny. And the other thing with Bitcoin is, even if I wanted to, like, even if I said my only focus is going to be Machankura, at the end of the day, when a Machankura user sends a payment to a lot of Satoshi user and it fails, I need to figure out why it failed, right? When a wallet of Satoshi user sends a payment to a Machankura user, well, they will most likely contact me, but I believe in some cases they would contact Wallet of Satoshi as well, right? So Wallet of Satoshi is my technical support. And a Wallet of Satoshi would be able to see, oh, there's these many transactions going to Machankura's node and failing. Let's send some liquidity to them, and I need to be in a position to do the same thing. Oh, there's these many transactions going to a Wallet of Satoshi's node and failing because of liquidity. Let me open some channels to them so that it succeeds and people get, a great experience. So, yeah, I think anyone working in the Bitcoin space is implicitly a catalyst, because it's such a very interoperable network. It's such a very interoperable technology, and it not interoperating is failure. So you are a catalyst by default in most cases, whether you like it or not. And if you are intentionally trying to be a catalyst, it's even better. You know.
Yeah, yeah,
Mm-hmm.
incredible. Yeah, you think about that right there. You said it was an old blog, but it
Mm-hmm.
clearly has informed a lot of your work. Oh,
Yeah. No.
since that time, because as soon as you said it, it was or as soon as I read it, I thought to myself, "Gosh, I never thought about it that way." But yeah, chemical reactions, catalyst speed the
Mm-hmm.
desired reactions.
Mm-hmm. Most definitely, right?
So
And yeah, and I appreciate writing it as well, because sometimes you figure something out and you forget that you figured it out, and then you are faced with the problem that the thing you figured out would be the solution. So yeah, I have another blog as well on here that I didn't publish, but I think that would be a conversation for another day. Yeah.
absolutely. So, which I would really enjoy that
Mm-hmm.
conversation on another
Yeah.
day.
Mm-hmm.
Um, what I would say is the theme and the thesis of my show, Changing the
Mm-hmm.
Tide, is that Bitcoin and Lightning and the Bitcoin Lightning Network are changing the tide towards greater freedom and prosperity for individuals around the world.
Mm-hmm.
And we're touching on it right now because of
Mm-hmm.
the fact that anyone can onboard, anyone can run the daemon, so long as they have, sufficient internet access.
Mm-hmm.
They can run both the Lightning Network daemon and the Bitcoin daemon.
Yep.
And so, but from your perspective, could you maybe touch on that? How you see that thesis playing out both through
Mm-hmm.
Machankura and just Bitcoin and Lightning in general.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. So that is, I think, one of the most important aspects of Bitcoin. A person being able to run a node and play a part economically as well. So in my early days, I was trying to run a node on anything, on my phone, on the TV, on whatever. I couldn't. I tried though. And I think the other
Amazing.
reason, yeah, the other reason is obviously internet is such a huge requirement for it. At work, I could, set up a node in a day because they had very quick internet. But when I was at home, I was like, how do I get this thing to do the thing that I wanted to do? And well, with a lot of patience, yes. But for me, even with the Machankura project, it only began after I had set up a Lightning node on my Raspberry Pi. Right. And then I asked myself the question, what am I going to do with this? Right? So I then set up a few plugins and then set up an RPC server. And then I was like, oh, okay, cool. Let me see if I could add USSD on top of that, right? And yeah, so then Machankura happened, and yeah, so I think that for me is a very underestimated point, and not even having to ask anyone for permission, right? There's a certain mentality that it puts you in, that, oh, I really ran a Bitcoin daemon, I really ran a Lightning daemon, sent a Bitcoin transaction, a Lightning transaction, without asking anyone for permission, right? And then you come back into the world, and then you send a payment, and your bank calls you and says blah 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 blah, whatever they say, and then you're like, no, I don't want that in my life. Why are you calling me, asking me to confirm stuff to spend my money, right? So then you're like, okay, cool, this Bitcoin thing is really where it is, right? So yeah, moving forward, I'd like to see more and more people run nodes, even though I understand that only a few would run nodes and everyone else would, just run light clients and stuff. But yeah, make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, and by trade, are you a programmer,
Oh
a
yeah, yeah.
computer programmer, or did you?
Yeah, I studied computer science at the University of Pretoria, and yeah, so I worked as a software developer for like 4 years or 5 years, and then I quit. I was like, okay, let me try working on my own projects, and see where that takes me.
And did Bitcoin provide some of the support for being able to walk away from like employment and work for yourself?
Yeah, no, most definitely, right? Because obviously number go up. So if I had some money put away and then number went up, and I was like, okay, cool, I could survive on this. But even besides that, I think it was more of a mental thing, because I believe that I could do it without employment. Because usually what people tell you is, do your job while building the stuff on you want to do on the side. But yeah, I was like, oh, okay, cool, I could do this without the job. And yeah.
Excellent, excellent.
Mhm.
Um, and so you're not just a catalyst on the programming side, though.
Mhm.
You are also working on Exonumia Africa.
Mhm.
Could you maybe give some insight into what caused you to bring that into existence and start that network?
Oh yeah, so that was during the time I was still reading up on Bitcoin. Well, I wasn't only reading up on Bitcoin. I was reading other stuff like economics and stuff, trying to see what would be the best option to put money. Right? This was around 2018, 2019. I read the Bitcoin Standard, Human Action, which also was referenced in that Be a Catalyst blog post, right? And then back to the earlier point, I was like, how would a person from my neighborhood go down the same rabbit hole? Right? Um, and English is not the first, second, third, or fourth language for most people in the township. So yeah, and these books don't have any pictures. So let me just say that, and yeah, so yeah, felt the need that there has to be somebody translating this content, right? And yeah, so that for me is my dream project, but it's not even a dream project anymore. It's a necessary project, because even with Machankura, I want the interface to be available in other languages, not just English. So yeah, and it has helped, and it has helped like really put me in tune with the whole make Bitcoin more accessible. And it's probably going to be the primary education project that I'm involved in. um and what yeah, Machangura fed back into it as well, because with that project I didn't care how people got access to the content, right? So with
Hmm.
what happened with my thinking was that, okay, let me make the content available, and those who are motivated enough to find it will find it and bring it back to their people and print it out or do whatever. But then I made the logo for Machankura, which is a Bitcoin B, but where that looks like the old telephone inside it, right? And if you also look
Mm-hmm.
at the outline for the Bitcoin B, it looks like a telephone booth as well, right? So yeah, yeah, and then I was like, oh wait, this is infrastructure that we are really not making use of, right? So I then was like, what if somebody
Yes.
could set up a toll-free number that people could call in, pick a language, and then listen to audiobook, listen to a translation of the Bitcoin Standard, listen to a translation of Mastering Bitcoin, all of these different things. And when they drop the call, obviously they would have to drop the call at some point and come back again, maybe even continue from the point that they had left off. And yeah, so that is a project I started, haven't finished, but the toll free number is live. And you can call in and get an introduction to Bitcoin in Sotho, Xhosa, Zulu, and maybe English, but I haven't published the English version. And yeah, this is like for me, where the education needs to be, like where the people are. And yeah.
Kgothatso, this is incredible, because as you created that Bitcoin or that Machankura uh, symbol, and it
Hmm.
represents a telephone booth, it actually all comes back to the point that Bitcoin is communication as well.
Hmm. Hmm.
It's the first real worldwide communication and monetary protocol wrapped into one,
Hmm. Most
and
definitely.
that's significant.
Yeah. And I actually had a blog in my drafts, but this is for the Machangura blog, an article. And the article literally says the medium is not the message. Right? So a lot of the time, I think we let the medium dictate what the message is. If a person writes a book, uh, that book is not the message, right? Oh well, not I mean, but by book I mean the physical. Oh, let me show this, because this is a Bitcoin Standard in French, and I can't read French, by the way. But yeah, this physical thing is not the message, and the message is really what Seyfedin was trying to tell people with the Bitcoin Standard, that you need a hard money, otherwise you become a slave, literally, right? If you study history, most of the people with bad money were the slaves. And if you study politics, geopolitics, we have bad money, and I think it's safe enough to say that we are the slaves, right? Yeah, especially looking at how certain things can be imposed top down, lockdown without a lot of good reasons, and even getting debanked for your opinion. As whatever PayPal tried to do with it. Well, they are doing it with a $2,500 fine for having a wrong opinion. So technically, we are currently slaves in the system. So yeah, that is the message, and if we can put that message out on any possible medium, we would, be doing quite well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hmm.
Well, this has been a fantastic discussion. All of the work that you're doing for Bitcoin, you truly are a catalyst.
Hmm.
And how can people find you, Machankura, Exonumia?
Hmm.
I want to make sure you can plug that so that people can come and see your work.
Okay, cool. So Exonumia is exonumia.africa. That's the main website. Follow that. On Twitter, we also Exonumia Africa. And yeah, follow that Twitter account and you will see our work. And on Twitter, Machangura is Machangura8333. The website is machangura.com. Or you could go to 8333.mobi. You'd see the same website. And yeah, then you should see our Twitter accounts and all the other pages as well. I'm mostly more active on Twitter. Let me say this while we are here. We are trying to push to make it non-English. Yeah, our most of our social media presence will probably be non-English. So if you are not following us in the next 2, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, you might miss out on English content. So yeah, over time we will
So you
stop
better
being
get there fast if you.
e- yeah, but right, next thing you know, you'll be interviewing me with a translator. But I'm kidding. I'll obviously do our interviews in English. So yeah.
Yeah. Well, we just need those of us who are English speakers just need to
Mhm.
learn these other languages. But uh,
Most definitely.
yeah,
Okay. Yeah. So thank you very much, man. And yeah, let's
yeah.
do this
Thanks.
again in
Thanks.
like 3 months. Huh?
I would love that. Yeah, I bet
Mm.
you'll have quite a few new things to talk about.
Yeah, no. I bought coffee, because I really want to work and push out a lot of stuff. Yeah.
Awesome. Awesome.
Mhm.
All right. Well, Kgothatso, great to meet you, and thanks for coming on today.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Sean. I appreciate your time.
You too. That was absolutely incredible. So, Kgothatso is just absolutely changing the tide. There's just no doubt about it. If you're someone who's already used his Machankura service or know about him from Exonumia, then you already know that uh, how much these projects are changing the tide. If you don't, now you know. Gosh, we're going to use the global system for mobile communications, the standard protocol, um, which, funny enough, the successor was 3G, but it's just a telco standard, digital cellular network, founded in 1991. And then we're going to use the unstructured supplementary service data, quick codes or feature codes. Um, and so you can have up to 160 characters. And so that's what's incredible because it allows a two-way exchange of a sequence of data. And so that's how you're able to use Bitcoin on the Lightning Network on feature phones, not smartphones. And so this is an example of the innovation. I can't stand that people say the emphasis is on the podcasters or whatever in the Bitcoin network. No, anyone can build on top of Bitcoin D, LND, the other implementations of Lightning, and they can do it in these novel ways that haven't been done yet, that are increasing access to sending and receiving Bitcoin, making procuring the goods and services that you need using non-smartphones. Oh, the internet, oh man, Bitcoin won't work without internet. Oh, sorry. It works on a GSM USSD, on the GSM and USSD protocols and standards. So, oh man, it'll never get widespread adoption in Africa where that, where internet is not ubiquitous. Well, okay, but what is ubiquitous? Feature phones. And so Kgothatso is not asking for permission to do this, and he's not really answering critics. He's just solving problems using Bitcoin on Lightning. And that is how the tide has changed, because you can. It's just like he said, you don't need permission to do it. You just go, solve the problem, and now you've created a new service that people need, and Bitcoin is humming on the continent of Africa. It's something like 9 or 10 nation states right now, maybe 12, but there's a ton of them. I think there's at least 4x more that can still be onboarded. So this is just an exciting project, and makes me extremely bullish on Bitcoin on Lightning. So if you liked the show, please stream sats to the show. It is not just messages via Lightning that you can send, but also sats along with a Boostergram message, and let me know what was interesting, what you learned, so that I can continue to bring that type of content. It also helps support the show, and I do plan to add Machankura as a split as soon as I get the node pub key for Exonumia. I plan to add Exonumia, which is the educational branch of what Kgothatso is doing down there. And so I plan to add that as soon as I get the node pub key. So in any case, it's an open source African language translations for Bitcoin literature. So, and also they are working, Kgothatso is working with Becoming Phil and Okin out of Namibia, which I had Becoming Phil on for a session about Landifa Bitcoin, a Bitcoin marketplace in Namibia and South Africa. So just exciting to see all of that coming together, just a true community that uses and builds for Bitcoin according to its principles on the continent of Africa. And so inspiring stuff, very exciting. And until next time, keep stacking, keep changing the tide.